Yeah, we've got one. So that'll take care of us.
And this one's for the TV.
Oh, that's the TV?
Yeah.
It's a cute little one.
Do you know everybody in the audience? I don't.
Do I know everyone?
Hello, everybody. Hello. We're gonna try to start this on time so we can maybe finish on time, or finish tonight, maybe. I'm Conrad Wharf, Chairman of the Lake Boon Commission. I'm gonna let the other two commissioners I'm from Hudson.
Chris Craveland from Stowe.
And I'm the new guy in town. I'm Dan Barstow from Stowe.
So we're starting right on cue at 7:30. I see a lot of interesting new faces in the room. The first thing on the agenda is actually Chairman's comments, and I had a bunch of things I was going to say, but I may not because there's a couple other issues on the lake right now. The main one being algae. The lake was never officially closed. It was recommended that you didn't swim in. Subtle difference, but that was the state recommendation. We, the Lake Boon Commission, have nothing to do with it. And I actually sent some notes to the Neshoba Board of Health asking some questions, and I got a very polite answer back. State law says this, this, and this, and that's the end of that. Because what I was saying to them, maybe we should be doing a little more testing. And the answer I got was, no, we'll decide when we test. You guys don't get to make that decision. And then a bunch of legal reasons why, et cetera. I have the note from them if anybody wants to read it. Everybody should rightfully be concerned about it. I see some faces that have been on the lake a long time. We've seen this algae before. In fact, we've seen it worse. And the lake is an interesting place. We've done a lot of work over the years on something called nutrient loading. Basically, if nutrients get in the lake, we're feeding something. And the question is what? When we used to have a really bad problem with invasive weeds, the weeds would eat the nutrients and the lake was nice and clean and we didn't have algae. Well, we finally got around to treating the weeds because they were really bad. And we've been doing that for a while now. But now what's eating that nutrients in the lake? And I think the answer probably is algae. We also in the past, and maybe we should try this again, is we did some mitigation efforts in trying to stop the nutrients from getting to the lake. And that came in 3 or 4 different ways. The number one is we put in 28 catch basins around the lake. So when the water came down in a rainstorm, it went in the catch basin, not in the lake. And except in really super downpours, they'd get overwhelmed. But for the most part, we stopped that water from going straight in the lake. We also did some education programs with us and Lake Boon Association together. And the state has some programs too on total lake management, which is what we've been trying to do ever since then. And how you might landscape your lot and things you should do and shouldn't do around the lake. We maybe have to look at redoing that because the algae blooms we're seeing, I don't think they're unusual. I've seen them every August that I've been here, which is 40 years. And there's a couple of people who have been here longer, but they seem to be worse this year. But the lake got very warm this year. It got to like 84 degrees. So it's cooling off now. But so that's my comments on the algae. I hope that, and I don't want to do any more on that because we can't do any more. I brought the write-up from the state. If anybody wants a soft copy, we'd be happy to send you one.
I thought you were going to pass it around.
I can if you'd like. I only got 2 more here, but Cindy's got one. I'm not going to do public comment yet in a couple minutes. So since I have a lot of new faces in the audience, open meeting law says that you're more than welcome to be here. In fact, we'd love to have you here, but you're really not part of the meeting. In public comment, we'll take comments from you as an audience, but when we start moving into what's on the agenda and the business of the meeting, You're more than welcome to be here, you're more than welcome to listen, but you're not more than welcome to comment unless we ask for it. Just kind of the ground rules of an open meeting. Okay, now you raised your hand. I will take a question right now since it's the beginning.
Oh, good. Is it possible for the commission or the Lakeland Association to do testing on their own when there's an issue?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure the answer is yes. You want to spend $85 and do a test? When you read what the state sent me and then the extra stuff behind that, it's not as simple as just a spot test. And that's what they basically told me. They said this is, you know, we can observe it, we can see it. The testing is a little more complicated. And I'll let you read the piece that's going around to see what they said. And then they back that up by state law on it, which is arduous to read, but we have that too. So they have a whole state law on this, on how to test, how to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they did close the public beach on the island, on Stowe Public Beach. And the recommendation that went with that was not to swim in the lake, but the lake itself was not closed according to what they're telling me. And it's Neshoba Board of Health. It's the health agent for the town of Stowe, which is looking over the lake. So I'm going to leave out the comments I was going to make and welcome our new commissioner, Dan, from Stowe. It's his first meeting. We have been through many meetings there was nobody out there. So this is really unusual.
Either I'm popular, or we got some big issues to deal with.
You catch them in minutes, so I don't have to read right up here. Good, thank you.
Yeah, I have it.
So we'll do public comment. We won't do it forever, but we will do it for a while. Cindy, and I know some of you, but not all of you.
So I'm Cindy Curley, I live on First Basin, Barton Road, lived here for a long time, and I guess my question is, what is growing in the First Basin all the way around the edge? It's like, for a terrible description, like, it's grass-like, it's never been there.
It's got the spiny things on it?
It's like big green clumps of something, but it's, you know, when you kayak, it's all around the First Basin. I know we haven't treated the First Basin, at least in my recollection.
Never. Ever.
I don't know if this is something we could have the department that does the treatment of the rest of the lake test to see if it's, I don't know if it's because it's so hot. It's never been there. I've lived here 55 years and never seen it before. And it's really invasive in everybody's front. You know,
Can I show you the photos of it?
You know, I mean, you've
Yeah.
been around the lake all the time. It's weird.
It looks like seaweed salad.
Yeah,
So-
that's a good point.
So we did take photos of it already, and we did send them to Solitude, our company that does the weed treating for us now. And the response we got from them was, it might be invasive. There's two very similar versions of that plant. Did you get anything more from them?
And not after that.
So we're gonna follow up with Solitude. They owe us a lake survey. When they do it, we'll, Andy, you actually are here too. We'll ask them, I've already asked them to identify the plants.
Great.
If they're invasive, then yeah, we could look at treating the whole lake. That's gonna change the contract. Because right now, it's only Basin 1 and 2. There are no weeds in Basin 1, remember?
Well, there never used to be, but they're like making up for lost time.
Yeah. And it's a different one too. It's not Cumbumber, it's not milfoil, it's
Right.
not curly pond weed, it's not the ones that we've been fighting for years. It's a different one. And the response from Solitude was, there's two versions of that particular weed, spiky something they called it. And did I get that right, spiky something?
Yeah, I think so.
And they told me one was invasive, one wasn't. And the question that I'll have for Solitude, and it's way more complicated because you got Conservation Commission issues you gotta get into too. Because I believe our orders of conditions, and Andy, help me on this, our orders of conditions don't involve treating Basin 1.
I don't know that it specifically
Yeah.
wants it to.
You don't
I
think so?
don't think it did.
So
I
this-
don't think it does.
if it's not, if we don't have a Concom issue, then it'll just be a money issue. And a contractual issue, which we can deal with.
Great, thanks.
But we'll definitely look at that. You taking notes, Andy? Andy, by the way, I keep saying Andy. Andy manages our relationship with Solitude, and Solitude is a company that does the treatment. all the different weed treatment people in the state, they kind of all got bought by a company, now they're called Solitude. So, thank you, Cindy.
Great.
Next. I don't know, the tall guy in the back.
Oh, me? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dick Elke from Lakeside, on a totally different matter. Around the lake, there are a series of, well, I guess for a better wanted word, right-of-ways, which are sprinkled around. And I made up a short letter to the board, which I gave to you. Let me just read it to summarize the thing. That a committee be charged with investigating the status of the so-called rights-of-ways around the lake, both in Stowe and Hudson. It could start with examining the assessor's maps to see how many there are identified. It could also visit the sites and perhaps take pictures and document their existence and use. It could report back to the commission of its findings, and the commission could determine a course of action. One possibility, if a so-called right-of-way has been appropriated by an abutter, would be to require that a sign be posted that would state the one asserting such ownership and the basis for such ownership, purchase or a deed or whatever is happening on those. And we know there are a whole series of these things scattered around, and a lot of them have been lost by whoever is next to them, and gee, all of a sudden it's somebody's property next door. So I just offer it to the board for their consideration, and we see where that might go. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Dick. Next, Laura.
So Laura Diamond, 76 North Shore Drive, and I too was really appalled by the lack of, what I perceived as the lack of testing of the lake and just the blanket kind of closure of no swimming, not only in Basin 1, but in Basin 2. So this week I've been embarked on an email campaign that's really gotten me nowhere, including to Bill Wrigley, to Cindy at our Board of Health, and then Jim at the Neshoba Board of Health. And I think there's some other people that kind of got linked into this email. But I was asking specifically, when was it tested? Because I was told that there had to be 2 tests, 2 clean tests to reopen the lake. And I was concerned that all of our activity at the end of the summer had been curtailed, and I wanted to know that there was documentation and evidence that, in fact, there was testing. So I was told that nobody ever told me the dates that it was tested, but I was told that there was a test done and results were expected to be back today. And as far as I know, it's not posted on the town website, but it should be posted on the town website when results are back. But as a result of that, there is a Board of Health meeting tomorrow at 5. And I would encourage people who are concerned about the lake and the perceived lack of testing, although maybe they don't have to test according to this email, to come to this meeting. And I think it's a good place for us to voice our concerns. You know, and for me, I just really, because I swim all the time, I want evidence that it either exists or it doesn't exist, and there's a good reason to swim or not swim in the lake. And I also like testing, if it's called for, to be tested in Basin 1 and Basin 2. I'm not convinced that if a positive test comes in Basin 1, that it would also come in Basin 2. But I'm not an expert in this field, so I was just trying to gather some information. And Jim, who's the Neshoba Board of Health person that also takes care of Stowe, that I believe is responsible for the testing, I'm told. He tried to call me a couple times, we crossed paths, and then in an email I specifically asked for the information that I was hoping to get from him, and he never responded. So tomorrow at 5, it's posted on the web. It seems like they won't get to any of this until 6 o'clock, but it would be good for people who have concerns about the lake to show up.
Thank you, Laura. A couple of quick things on that I got a note from the Neshoba Board of Health. And the note they sent to me from, it's going around with the name on it.
Colleen, she works with Jim at the Board of Health, but apparently Cindy told me Jim was the person to contact, and I can tell you his last name. Do you know who he is?
Gareffi,
Griffey.
Yeah.
Gareffi.
Griffey.
Jareffi.
Thank you, that's it, sounds right, yeah.
So that note says that no testing was done. So,
But I have written in emails saying that there was
I
testing,
know.
and it was supposed to be back today.
And I think Bill Wrigley said that as well at the selectmen meeting the other night,
that there was testing.
that there was testing.
Mr. Selectman, you were gonna say something?
Yes, Don Hawks, selectman, former member of your august board here with you. I was at the Board of Health meeting 2 weeks ago tomorrow.
Can I ask that, I'm having trouble hearing the audience, can I ask that you come to the table and speak? You don't have to hold it, but speak in your, thank you.
Yeah, I attended the Board of Health meeting 2 weeks ago tomorrow, which was right after. That was about 5 days after the first notice of some algae. That prompted Jim Gareffi to go out that day, on Friday, I think it was the 18th. I'm trying to recollect what was reported at that meeting. And that on his recommendation, from his visible observation of what he saw as a health professional, the Board of Health, in a special action, closed the beach. At the meeting on Thursday, 2 weeks ago, he made his report back, and I think Dave Gray had attended a viewing of that algae with Jim,
I was there too.
and Dan was in attendance, so correct me if I'm misquoting. I commented pretty actively on this subject when it came to public comment. And what I heard Jim Gareffi say was, if the board exercises its right to close the beach, DEP says, and I'm paraphrasing him, that you must close the lake. I asked him for clarification on that. And I think those in attendance said, yes, that was, you heard that correctly.
That's what I recall.
So, to the extent we're discussing different definitions of the word closure. There was obviously, there's no closure police to go around to keep people from going in the water if they choose to. But that was what happened that night. Just on historical perspective, in my first term back in the 80s, which ended in 1996, there was an algae bloom that summer. At that time, we had a full-time health inspector, Jack Wallace. Many of you remember, he's since retired. He came to me, and that's the first time I ever heard the words cyanobacteria from him. And he's a licensed sanitarian. And he came to me and said, hey, Hoxie, you can take me out in your boat. I want to take some samples for testing. I did that. I took my pontoon boat, and he took samples in Basin 1, Basin 2, and Basin 3. I can't tell you how quickly that happened after it was first noticed, but I will attest to the fact that I did that. He took samples, and he did something with them to test. I don't know the outcome of that, but I guess I was a little perplexed, and this isn't so much to you, but a question for the Board of Health. Maybe the first part of the delay that we heard was nobody could figure out where to go to have these things tested. I think what I heard through the grapevine was Jim Gareffi drove to Connecticut with us, where?
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island,
Rhode
wrong
Island.
state, I was south,
Yeah.
to have it tested. My first reaction, I guess, would have been to call Jack Lynch and say, where did you take these things when it happened 4 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever? That might have been a starting point. There are a number of the lakes around. This is all issues for them to raise. But I just wanted to put it in a little bit of historical perspective. We have seen this before, and it's nasty stuff. There's been rumors, can anybody attest to the fact whether 2 dogs died? Or was that just scare stuff that was going on?
Well,
I saw 2 emails.
I know
think
that,
somewhere else.
I know that of one that did, but it was also a very
Okay,
old dog.
all right.
So,
You know, the one that got sick.
Yeah.
That was the one that was
The
on.
one that got sick for 7 hours, vomiting and diarrhea, before he started to slow down and recover, right after drinking at the end of Lakeside Ave.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going too far afield.
So,
I just wanted to get some
is it-
historical-
Just number 5, what role does Hudson Board of Health play in this, in some of the lakes in Hudson? Do they just defer to Stowe?
They defer to so.
So just as a point of clarification, Laura Diamond again, this is from Cindy Pelosi, and this was dated today. He says, I believe the health agent will have results today from the first test. He is also collecting the second test tomorrow morning. Feel free to come to the Board of Health meeting to Thursday, September 12th, and when the agent does his report, and he'll be able to answer questions about testing. And then she refers me to both Colleen and Jim. who-
I think Colleen and Jim better get their stories straight, because we're getting 2 different stories.
They're both, she says they're both handling the Triple E and the lake testing, because I was also talking to everybody about the Triple E in the spring.
Okay. So that's really all we can do about that right now. If you really, it's not an LBC issue. Let's let the Board of Health figure out where they go with it. I'd love to see better testing, even if it is an arduous task. And yes, there is a problem with labs, Don. The only one locally is a place called Alpha that does do testing. The one in Worcester that we've always used is closed. So,
There's a Rhode Island Analytical that has an office in Hudson, and that may be where he went. They send some of their samples to Rhode Island, but he doesn't have to go.
oh, nice.
That may be where, so they do well testing, we've used it.
Okay, somebody else.
I just had a question about perhaps, and I'm not sure if this is relevant or not, but.
Can you go up, please?
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm Joyce from.
I'm sorry to have to ask
No,
you
it's
to do
okay.
that. just can't.
I live on Hale Road. My name is Joyce Trenholm. And I just wondered whether or not there would be any way to perhaps get more finance into treating the lake? And if you guys are responsible for that?
I can answer that one.
Thank you.
So when it comes to treating the lake, I don't like the word treating the lake, but I'll stay with it for a moment. I like to call it weed mitigation. But it is a herbicide that we do apply. The towns pay for that now. So the way it gets funded is we contract with a company called Solitude. Solitude proposes a treatment plan and a contract and a cost. We then take that cost to the town meetings in Hudson and Stowe, and with a warrant article, and we fund it via warrant articles in the 2 towns. It really has not been a major issue. Since we've come full circle on this. For a long time ago, it was an issue. Today, the towns seem to realize that in order to maintain the lake, which they want to do, that's something we have to do, and there's a cost associated with it. So I can't really speak for Stowe because I don't get to go to that town meeting because it's the same night as Hudson, but Hudson town meetings, very receptive, and I believe Stowe is as well.
We have
Yeah.
had no particular
Yeah,
issues.
so-
But I also, to that, I think just as you were saying, as we look at Solitude's, we bring Solitude in, who is our partner in this space for treating the lake. We should identify if they really believe, A, if we have new weeds that are more invasive, and B, if there's anything else that should be happening or broader, in which case we would get a quote from them as to how big that is, right, how much that would cost us. We're in the first year of a 3-year contract, so as he said, we would have to, if we want to do something different, additional, then we would have to renegotiate that contract. But that's certainly a possibility if we find that's needed for appropriate lake management.
Just clarification on that. that you're talking about weeds,
Yeah, I know.
separate contract.
Yes.
Anything to do with the health determination is under the aegis
Correct.
responsibility. of the
We're not
Board of
talking about
Health.
health right now. We're talking about weeds.
Well, well,
So,
okay.
so let me follow up on what she said a little bit. Solitude owes us a lake survey every year. And Andy, they do the whole lake or just based on what we're contracted for?
I think it's supposed to be the whole lake, or it may be areas.
We will follow up to get them to the whole lake.
Yep.
So they can come back and recommend what we have and what to do about it. That's something the LBC can do and will do.
Michelle Walsh,
Michelle,
76 Pine Point. I guess I need clarification. What is exactly considered invasive? Because I'm just gonna state this, and I've already sent it off to David, but in front of my house, there was a 50-foot by 15-foot area completely covered in weeds one Saturday morning. And that was only one morning. There were other mornings it was pretty bad. But this particular morning, where it took us a couple hours to pull the weeds out in a big, huge net, I would say 12 nets full of them, and it was just very unusual. So what is considered invasive?
Andy, can you answer that?
Non-native.
No, yeah, I would have said non-native too.
So you can go to, there's a website on Massachusetts, so if you just look up invasive weeds in Massachusetts, there's a whole site that identifies what's considered invasive, meaning it's a non-native weed, so therefore, it's something that's targeted, if we could, to get rid of. It shows pictures and that sort of thing. So that's what's generally referred to when we say an invasive. It means it's on that list of the state's designated ones. It doesn't mean that it's not everywhere.
What's that website?
I don't know exactly. I just know I've Googled it from just doing invasive weeds, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
So that's something that we will address as we look into our weed management or lake management. I know what I was going to say. So in the past, we've treated invasive species. I don't think it means we can't treat non-invasives. I don't know the answer to that right now, but that's something that we will follow up on.
Yeah,
So
I
let's
think
look-
our order of conditions is
Right.
Invasive.
focused
Correct.
specifically on that.
So that's what I said earlier, that it might be a Concom issue.
Yeah, well, exactly. If we go
And I guess
beyond.
that's part of what I was saying, is that this wasn't just me, because all my neighbors kept coming to me and saying, Michelle, you go to the meetings. Well, I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I just have no idea what this is. But they had lived there for years and said they'd never seen it. And I get the brunt of it because of where I live, that's all, so.
In the 80s, that used to be a daily occurrence for people to Basin too. Yeah, we will follow up on that. Anything new?
Yeah, Edie Hill, Pine Point Road.
You need to use the mic so that, just stand near the table.
Can you hear if I stand here?
Let me see if I can hear you.
Okay. My daughter-in-law asked me to ask about the PFAS in the water in Hudson and whether or not that has
Nothing to do
any
with us.
effect on the lake.
So
That's
you mean
drinking water.
in the drinking water, the water supply?
Yeah.
We had ours tested for that, and I'm on Hale Road on the second basin, and it came back negative. So, it's a Barton Road. It might be a Barton Road issue. And O'Connell Way, it's private wells.
I believe PFAS is a statewide issue. I think the Board of Health will be addressing that tomorrow night as well.
I know what happened in Hudson, and why it got in there, but I don't think it's a lake issue at all.
Well, if it's in the wells, wouldn't it be moving toward?
Maybe, I don't know.
Or coming from?
It was coming from one particular building because they weren't managed. They were ventilating it out of the building. It was depositing on the roof. The rain came and the gutters just dumped it out, and it ended up in the ground. That's what happened. And, you know, the town of Hudson has put in some treatment stuff for their water, a lot of it. If you go down to that Cranberry Log well, right now, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff. Of course, you gotta go buy a few no trespassing signs, but they've also been publishing all the stuff they've been doing. But I don't think it's a lake issue. We done? We good? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's so good to see everybody here, too. It's nice. The next item on the agenda basically is welcoming our new member. I think we might have already done that, but Dan was appointed recently and now is a member of the commission. And we've done public comment. Organization. You wanted this on the agenda, so I'm gonna let you start this.
Sure. So, I mean, it is our kind of standard to, basically on an annual basis to look at positions in here, who's, you know, chair, and who's gonna be clerk or secretary. So I wanted to raise that. We have a new member on, and so I thought we should, and you're in an interim position at this point. I wanted to just raise that. And also basically say that I'm, you know, after the 2 years, you know, the very first day I was on, you had suggested me as a chair, and I said, well, thank you, I need a little experience here. But I am kind of willing to take that on if that's, you know, kind of the interest of the commission.
Okay, we didn't put that on as an actual action item tonight, though.
Well, that's the decision, discussion and
I
decision.
didn't get it that way, because we normally put that on as voting on et cetera. What else besides, so you're talking about who takes which roles?
Yes. Yeah, so we have 3 roles essentially, right? So we have chair, we have clerk or secretary who's responsible for our clerk. Well, I think it was secretary before, but anyway, clerk, and then commissioner, right? Just no designation.
Just want to turn this thing down so it doesn't decide to ring on us. Thank you. I don't mind voting on it, I just don't like the way it was listed. I didn't realize that's what that was.
That's what I thought it was.
Okay. So let's talk about that for a minute. So I make a horrible secretary. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, looks like Dan.
I'm willing to volunteer if that's appropriate.
You think you've come far enough to know enough? I mean, you're really good organizationally.
I know what I know, and I have 2 other people who know a whole lot also. So I don't think it's the role of the chair to know everything, or having, you know, to be here for 30 years, 40 years. I think it's the role of the chair to bring the group together appropriately, manage our meetings, and engage the right people at the right time. So I do think I am in a position where I can do that.
So a couple comments around that. We are currently in violation of our orders and conditions. You're aware of that, right?
We've talked about that,
Right.
and as a commission, we're
Right. And
which is part of why I put together the calendar to say, here's the stuff we need to be paying attention to, so that we don't lose track of stuff. So,
Your organizational skills are great, I love them. So the only reason I'm bringing that up is because for the last, we're in violation for 2 years running now. So if the Conservation Commissions were so choosing, they could stop drawdown.
so how does that relevant to?
It's
Who is
relevant
the-
because the previous chair wasn't knowledgeable enough to realize we were in violation and didn't fix it. And
So how does that
So, well, that's what,
pertain to me?
that's the comment back to you, is there's so much going on around weed management, around drawdown, around all the other things, and you're doing such a good job doing this. I'd hate to see you stop doing that, because you're very good at it, and this is very good at it. And
So I believe it is the commission's role to stay on top of all of the things. So for example, if we were out of whack with our, the order of conditions, it's not just the chairperson's responsibility. It is a shared responsibility across this commission. So in that sense, we all failed in there. If we're in violation, it was not just our chair. And going forward, I would expect that we are all looking at everything we should be doing, and regardless of role, making sure that we raise up the things that if we're in need of doing something and that haven't, addressed it appropriately yet, that we make sure we get it on a meeting and we work through it. So
Comments,
that's my
Dave?
approach.
Yeah, first thing, thank you for raising this topic. And, I've gotten to know you a little bit, but certainly you're very well regarded. People know you well. I've seen you, I get a chance to go around the lake, and people have, you have good relationship with the lake. And you've been working on the commission for 20 years, and if you're the chair, terrific.
25.
25 years, terrific. On the other hand, I know that Chris, I was impressed with your ability to pull together that list of things, of responsibilities, been taking a look at it. And I think that your ability to organize that, make sure we're complying with those things, I think is a real asset. And if you're eager to do this, I think we should all give a vote of appreciation for that. As I said, fine if you are, but I think that you would give, a new perspective here that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm reluctant on it, that's all. That was kind of my mind. I've been thinking long-term, not short-term. And I have been very impressed with what you have been doing.
You all going to jail.
Would you be amenable to tabling this with the next meeting, and then put this on as, vote for members, vote to do things, and then, because the way this was put on this agenda, I thought it was completely different.
Well, what did you think it was?
Who's doing what on the commission, not necessarily chairman and clerk positions, but, we've got all these responsibilities. What does the commission really do, right? We really only do a few things. And who's gonna shepherd those things? They're also further down here, drawdown and treatment and things like that. So that's why you surprised me, because I didn't read it that way. I'm sorry. In fact, I told you before the meeting, when I read the minutes, I said, oh, we did not get everything on the agenda that was labeled for what we wanted to do next time. So I'm just surprised, that's all. Part of me is more than willing to say, let someone else do it. And part of me says there's a lot of knowledge in the last couple of weeks.
The knowledge doesn't go.
Yeah.
So the knowledge stays on the commission, which is a wonderful thing. But it doesn't, the commissioner, the chair does not have to have all of the knowledge of the commission. It is collective.
I agree with that, but it's the chair's responsibility to make sure the things that need to get done do get done.
I agree with that.
And we failed on that in the last 2 years. However you want to tell that, we've failed on it in a lot of different dimensions.
Well, I don't think there's a
especially-
lot of different dimensions, but if there's
Well,
something,
it's
again,
around drawdown, there's multiple things that haven't
Yeah.
happened. We have not been recording lake levels.
that's,
We have not
as
been
you said,
testing the
the order
water.
of conditions.
We have not
may
been meeting
not.
the orders of conditions.
Right.
And there's multiple places in those orders of conditions where we're in violation right
Mm-hmm.
now.
I don't,
And
I'm not suggesting that that would be, untrue. I'm just saying that I think that I have a very systemic approach to looking at what's the work we need to do, what's our timing, what do we need to do when, who's going to do it, And I think I've kind of proven that that's my approach to things. And I think that will suit us well to make sure we are focused on the things we need to focus on, and then use the knowledge of the folks that are on the commission and others to make sure that we cover all those things.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps, Connery, if you want to wait till the next meeting, give you a chance to sort of think about this, but I would, if I were you, I would say what a relief to have Chris take on that, putting into that place, that structure. And I think the important point that we're all making is that we're all commissioners, and it's not just us. There are a lot of people here helping as well, and it's not a question of, it wasn't your responsibility whether or not to do things over the past couple of years. It's not any judgment on that. If it ends up being you, terrific. But I think, Chris, you've really put a lot of thought into how to make sure that we're sort of organizing that structure.
No, I like what Chris has been doing. I don't disagree with that. That's all goodness. When I sat down and thought about what we do as a commission, I came up with a short list. What does the LBC do? Well, we do water quality, not water testing. Big difference, except for testing for drawdown. We do lake-specific regulations, we do drawdown, we do wind mitigation, we do boating safety, working with the Stowe police and the safety officer, and we put the buoys in and out of the water. Those are the major things that we do every year. They all have to get done. The last one on my list was listen to the community and respond when and where appropriate. So that was kind of what I was trying to figure out what we really do as a commission. And I was trying to do that for you. I think you can have this list. I only brought one, but that was what I was going to talk about in comments. Yeah, it would please me a lot if we could just do it next time. I mean, I don't care if it's 2 weeks from now. I just need to internalize that, a little bit. Or if you guys...
So what do you think will change in 2 weeks or a month?
I'll feel happier about it. Or if you'd like, just looking at the rest of the agenda. Can we defer this one and I'll bring it back up at the end? I'll go through this stuff here and then we'll come back to this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that. So minutes, let's get the minutes.
So this was July 22, minutes from our July 22 meeting.
I went through them. They're very good as always. Did any comments? Or you actually can't have any comments.
I can't.
You were
Well, you
here.
should, because actually you were here.
Yeah, I was here, but I wasn't a member, so
Oh,
I
it's
think I
okay.
need to defer,
Okay.
although I did read them.
Yeah. I think the minutes are good.
So you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted, the draft minutes.
Seconded?
Discussion? Having no discussion, all in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
I defer.
Okay, so we've got that one done. That's always an easy one, especially when you're doing them. Bills. I have a couple. Does anybody else have
Yep,
some?
I have one.
Would you like to go first?
Sure. So this one is the bill for the repair on the boat. Which was apparently caused by bad gas.
Yep, that's what it was caused by.
So it's kind of curious. So since we bought the gas, 3 days before that, so, yeah?
It wasn't me.
Okay. All right. So that one is, let's see. So this is one I paid on my Visa. I did have to provide them with the tax exemption certificate, because that hadn't happened when it got dropped off?
They have it.
They didn't, well,
They do have it.
okay, well, they claimed
Yeah.
no knowledge, and it wasn't, even when I called ahead of time, they said no.
They do have it.
Yeah, so I
So
think we
you
have to
know-
provide it
No,
each time.
It's on file up there.
Yeah?
Well, I have it if you need it, but it is on file at
Yeah.
Cabela's.
Yeah, so, so that's for a total of $299.02.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the reimbursement to Chris of whatever that number was. For repairs to the boat.
$299.02.
Now, that is operational money, that is not split between the towns, that
Yeah,
comes
I
out of our
thought that was
budget.
the case, so it just goes to Stowe.
That's correct.
So we have a motion,
I'll second it.
okay,
All in favor?
aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So we still have to sign, right?
Yeah, we, all three of
So
them.
this is, I thought,
Let's make a pile and do them all at once. We have, that's your only bill, right?
that's the only bill I have,
Okay,
yes.
I
And we
have
have
two.
Solitude.
I
yeah.
have two bills. One is from Solitude for the amount of $62.62.50. That splits down to $41.75 from Stowe and $20.87.50 from Hudson. And can I have a motion from one of you for me okay to pay this?
I move that we approve that for payment.
And do I get a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
For discussion? All in favor, aye, okay.
no,
So I have 3 copies of this, 4 copies of it I have, but we only need 2, one for Stowe. We need 3. So we'll put that in the file for sign.
yeah.
Okay, then I have just a small gas bill for the boat. Our
Also
boat,
another gas bill.
yeah, our boat gets used quite a bit by the Stowe police.
So, should they be putting the gas in?
I don't want them to ever put gas in it again. Is that enough said? Is that enough said? There's a hint behind that? Yes, they should, and they volunteered to. I've verboten them from doing it for obvious reasons. It's not much money. This one's $51.74. This was for patrolling over the weekend, over lighting the lake weekend, basically.
So do we provide tax exempt for that also?
No, can't.
Can't?
No way.
Because one of the things that Mike Solisi mentioned to me when I was arranging for him to pick up the boat was that the town, we could get a card potentially from the town. Has that been looked at before? And
Yeah, so we have, the trouble with all of this is, we don't use very much gas in the space of the season. I think we put $100 worth of gas in the boat total. We can go to the town of Stowe and get fuel for the boat, and they will give it to us. But it's a long ways out of the way, and someone has to do it. So that's typically why it hasn't been done in the past.
so will they reimburse you the full amount or less
This-
the tax?
They'll reverse the full, they don't, you get reimbursed 100% for fuel,
Okay.
so. I didn't put okay to pay on this one. This will be the last one this year, the boats. We're not gonna have any use of it at all now.
Okay, so
So we-
I'm
we-
motion to reimburse
The-
Conway for the
51
patrol boat gas of $51.74.
Correct.
I move that we approve that.
It's called second.
I thought you were calling for a motion.
No, I
Oh,
made
you
a
did,
motion.
you did the motion.
I made
Okay,
a
then I
motion.
seconded.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's all the bills I know of. Anybody else?
No.
So, we can have a signing party now. I'll start with you, and you can just pass it this way. How's that?
Oh, good, this one's worse than mine.
I like assembly lines.
And I'll have to make a copy of this one, so.
I don't, yeah, you want one for you?
Yeah.
I should have made a copy, I'm
I
sorry.
need one at home. Well, no, this one.
Yeah,
Can't make a copy of that because I had it.
Oh, yours, you're correct. Okay, so that's the end of that.
So you need one for
I need-
that.
I need one for
Hudson.
Hudson.
We need that. And
So as far as I know, we've done that.
And you have one, or we need to make one
No,
for this
but
one too?
I don't
Okay.
need that.
You don't? Oh, wait, this is going to Stowe. Got it. Okay.
No, I've got records of that if I need it
Okay.
online. I hate paper.
I noticed that.
So your responsibilities calendar you built, again, that's your agenda item. I looked at it, great, I love it.
Yeah, and so I think, so what I don't want to go through everything today, right? So, because, some of it's starting from January and it goes on through. But what I thought maybe we could do is spend a little bit of time on sort of the September, October, November, and see if there's anything that jumps out to say, okay, we've got to get on this. We need to either get volunteers to do it, or we need to have a meeting to discuss something.
Did you, that's the only copy, or did you
Oh,
give me a copy?
I gave you a
of-
copy. Maybe this is the one. I don't know. You can have that one. I'm sure I have another one somewhere.
That's okay. I can look over your shoulders.
Yeah, I have this copy.
We have a copy right here. It's
All right.
okay, I can look at one of them.
Okay.
So which one come
So
up?
sort of look at September, October, and November. So, so Solitude Bill.
Mhm.
So there's another one going to, no, that is this one. So we're good there.
Is that- this
Yep,
is that
was this one.
15%?
Yep, that's the 15%.
Yep.
That's the September one. So we're good there. So kind of you had mentioned kind of one of your concerns overall was that without you've got two buddies here that neither one of us have boats or necessarily boaters, and your concern around getting some of the things done on the lake that require the boat and some manual labor. So I wanted to kind of note that if we're planning to pull out the buoys probably in October, we might want to solicit volunteers to kind of help that process, whether it's amongst us or ask the community if there's anybody that would like to help out in that space in October. So is that something we want to do?
The buoys are gonna come out. I've
Yep.
done it for 25 years.
Yep.
I think it's Stowe's turn to do it. So, yeah, I don't have any problem with the way you worded that. I think you're gonna have trouble getting volunteers, but good luck, I hope you do, or we do. And then.
Do we have any volunteers?
I'll help you out.
Michelle?
Yeah, I'll give a hand.
It's
I won't
very,
do it in the kayak.
No. Sailboat?
I have a power boat, I think we can pull them out.
you don't want them in your boat.
They're
We'll
ugly.
put them in the back.
She'll just get a new boat.
Exactly. We'll tie my kayak to the back and then we'll throw it in the kayak.
It is the dirtiest, messiest job that we do.
Yeah.
And it's also, you gotta be very careful, because the chains of the anchors damage boats really easy.
Put in Dad's sailboat.
Yeah.
Loading dock.
But Dick Gelpy said we could, Dick said he'd do it in his ribby, though. Ribbies don't get hurt by chains.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a few volunteers. Are you willing to drive the boat, or should
No.
we? No? Okay, so we'll talk to even, if we need to, if it's better, we could
Well, I'm not
also.
doing it with anyone that doesn't know how to do it.
Oh, no, we're not. Yes, understood. So we'll definitely kind of.
Yeah, and I
look at
volunteer to
that.
help.
Yep, okay, so we'll go with that, so that needs to happen. So drawdown arrangements and related notices, so I think that's one of the things that we have to,
We have to put
Really?
a notice in, I haven't got the orders and conditions in front of me, but I believe we have to publish a notice we'll put a notice out that we're gonna do it.
Yep. So we need to kind of look at timing for that, so if we're, drawdown,
Drawdown is supposed to start on October 1st.
well, no earlier than October 1st, yep. So we're at a point where I think that we're supposed to do 2 weeks' notice.
I don't have it in front of me. I'd have to look up the OCCs.
I've got the conditions here. I don't remember seeing 2 weeks. Maybe it is.
Yeah, I'm not positive about that, but I thought I remembered seeing something, so, I'm happy to take
Well, we need
ownership
to,
for
we need to look at that.
determining. Is that,
Are you looking for the conditions?
I was, but I'm not gonna read through the whole thing now anyway, so.
so, there's a list in the back of it that shows you what, an action item list. It's one page, it's got 10 things on it, or 8 things on it.
I think that one's our
Um,
seasonal drawdown, this one.
um, That's drawdown.
Yeah, that's drawdown.
So this is kind of the operational procedure
Yep.
we use
Yep,
to do what it's required in the OOC.
right.
And we established that with the input from the Stowe Conservation Commission a long time ago. And the Highway Department actually pulls the boards in and out for us, which I was so happy when they started doing that. That is not easy. So you've got, that's good.
Well, so I will check the order of conditions and see, the timing. I don't think we have to meet again in order to kind of arrange for that, to post a notice. I think we would just
So-
coordinate that.
The way I was looking at this agenda was, maybe I put things a little bit in order,
Yep.
because I wanted to say who's gonna
Okay.
shepherd drawdown, who's
Okay.
gonna shepherd lake treatment. Once we have a name attached to each one of those, and a name attached to the boat and a name attached to the buoys, that's the major thing. I'd like to have one of us, everybody responsible for something, which is the mistake that we didn't make in the past. If you take this list and lay it onto this list, you'll find you've got almost all of that here.
Yeah, I mean, that,
someplace. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
This is a more of a project plan. I like it. Yeah, because we need.
So this is a now, so the drawdown notice is a now kind of thing, so that's gonna
Yeah.
have to happen this month.
Yeah.
And
So-
then,
So let's jump forward a minute. Who's gonna shepherd drawdown?
when you say shepherd drawdown, what does that mean to
Typically-
you?
It means one of us takes responsibility for getting it done. And that means that the things we didn't do last year and the things we did do last year. Come October 1st, someone's got to call Mike and say, no, it's not Mike anymore, but it's no Mike anymore, you know. Have a board pulled, et cetera. You got to kind of watch it. We got to make sure that the levels get taken. We got to make sure that the water samples get taken and tested. All the things that are in the orders of condition.
So were you coming into, because I read this agenda item as, for example, drawdown, get well plan and preparation for 2019. So you have, it was not saying like who's in charge. I thought this would be to discuss what has to happen. Do we need to have a get well plan? If so,
We do.
do you have one in mind?
Maybe, I do. But, so what's interesting is, when you have an LBC organization up here, to me, I was assuming that was who's responsible for the activities within it, as in organizational responsibilities. I was looking at it saying, how come there's no vote for new chairman on this? So that's why, that was the misinterpretation that I had. So, what we had done in the last 2 years is we assigned one person, and it turned out it was Dawn, to be responsible for drawdown. And we had Andy, who was responsible for lake treatment, and I was taking care of the boat and the buoys. So that was kind of the big breakdown of work on the commission.
I can volunteer for the drawdown.
I'm good with that. You good with
Yeah,
that?
I'm good with that.
So we're actually jumping forward a little bit. So if I'll make a motion that Dan be responsible for drawdown and making sure that we meet, meet the correct, the orders and conditions. I see you've read them. That's
Yeah.
good. So you know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And, so we have to do the water sampling. There's nothing we can do about the past. It's over. Okay? So we've got to show the Concoms that, yep, okay, we screwed up in the past, but this year we're going to do it right. I believe there's a report that has to get written as
Yeah, there's an
well.
annual report, there's
Yep.
one for the weeding and the drawdown that are due in April and May.
So we did the one for weeds with Solitude. We did not do the one for drawdown. So that's why I say we didn't
Yeah.
do a drawdown report. We didn't do drawdown water samples. There's a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, there's a list of items.
It didn't
Yep.
happen for the last 2 seasons.
Right. so-
Drawdown happened, but all the other stuff didn't.
Yep,
Okay.
so.
Okay, so I'll, do
We've
we need a-
already added that in, I think.
do we need a motion to make that happen, or we can just?
Organizational?
Yeah,
Well, I guess it can't hurt, right? So
Well,
you already made the motion.
I'll make the motion that Dan be responsible for drawdown.
Yep, I second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Well, the only discussion I have is that I want to make sure I learned. I'll, you know,
Yeah.
You are welcome to ask
Yeah.
questions anytime you want, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability.
yeah.
Yeah, and we also have Kathy Safara, so we may wanna,
You have
Yeah.
Kathy, you have the orders and
To-
conditions themselves. Kathy's aware that we're in violation. They don't seem to be upset about it, but they are aware.
And just because I'm a new member of the commission, this is an open meeting, and that's the way we can't have any discussion about this outside of the meeting, so we do it here. But my assumption is that once we say, gee, we're doing this drawdown, there's some discussion about doing it, but here's where we decide who will be responsible and make sure that we comply. But I may need to call you up and say, hey,
It's
you know,
not discussion, it's just, I'll give you knowledge so you can do
Yeah.
the job.
yeah, just to be
it's-
clear on
it's-
what
it's a
we
gray-
can and cannot.
Yeah, it's a bit of a gray area because I asked that of our town management about whether I could sit and just get a debrief from another commissioner to kind of give me a dump of
Yeah.
how things work on the commission, and I was told it would be best to do that in an open meeting.
Yeah, and I asked the same
Yeah.
question, that the purpose of the open meeting, obviously, so you all hear our
Right.
discussion and provide input.
Yeah.
But that if it's a policy decision or an allocation of responsibility or a discussion about that, that needs to be here. But if it is an operational
Yeah.
task, you know, coordinating around Solitude or whatever, that some
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows about, we all agree on,
Yeah.
that an operational task we can communicate. We just need to be sensitive to not dealing with sort of policy questions.
That was the advantage of having, for instance, Andy as a volunteer for weed management. It solves that problem.
Right.
Yeah,
'cause-
yeah, and Dave's been very helpful
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So,
Okay?
Yep.
let's see, that was the discussion. All in favor?
I
Aye.
think we already said that, yep.
Okay, so Dan is gonna shepherd drawdown. Should we go back? Which one do you wanna?
So,
We're
well,
back to,
if you're, so,
we are back to responsibilities calendar. Okay, and,
so October, so obviously when we have to get the boat out, presumably put it into, have whatever winter maintenance, put it into storage.
yeah, that happens a little bit around my schedule usually. I'm gonna be going in early October this year.
So are you taking ownership for that?
I'll get the boat out, absolutely. Winter maintenance and storage, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just not sure that's the right schedule for it.
Well, it's in October. You're thinking it's not in October?
Um,
You don't usually wait till November to do that, do you?
It's all dependent on schedules.
Or
Yes.
probably weather.
And weather. Some years we pull it out early, some years we
Yeah,
pull it
but
out late. Yeah.
Again, it's.
But I'll own the boat.
Yeah.
I have no
Yeah.
problem with that. I didn't have that on here, but, so I'll continue to own the boat.
So buoy removal and storage.
And maintenance has to be added to that, because they don't last forever.
Yep.
And the chains don't last forever.
Yep.
So when we pull the buoys out of the water, they are awful messy. I hate it. But anyways, you gotta find a place to store them. For the last 25 years, that's been my front yard. We gotta repair any chains or anchors that need replacing, or the anchors shouldn't be replacing, but the chains probably will. I use weightlifting weights, because cement blocks are really nasty to handle. And they're horrible on the boats, where the round dumbbell weights, 35-pound weight holds it down great, and it's easy to deal with. So that's what I've been using for weights. The buoys themselves last about 5 years. There was a time when I would get one new buoy every year. Right now, we're doing pretty good on the buoys. We've got 6 of them. Yeah, we got a surprise. Where's the 6th one? The 6th one is actually done by we don't do it, somebody else does. It's down in the Narrows leading to Don's house. Dave Metro puts it in and out for us. He actually bought it, if I remember right. So yeah, that's the stuff that has to happen every year. And then the lights on top of the buoys, those are only good for a year as well. So they have to be removed and replaced every year. Some people like the blinking ones. I like blinking lights because I'm an ocean sailor and they're on the lake. You don't like blinking lights?
I'd like to make a public comment. Glen Hill Road, I hate the blinking lights.
Right as you alluded.
So,
Yeah, look right
so
at
let's
it.
just talk about, so buoy removal and storage and maintenance. So we know that has to happen in October. So is that, again, is this something that, I know you've done it in the past, or you're
Yeah,
saying?
I would like
this-
to let Stowe own that one now. I've owned it for so many years.
Okay, well, we will,
25 years is a pretty
we'll
good
talk to the
run.
town. So,
And it's not just removal and storage, it's the refurbishing of them. So, because they got to be ready to go back in, and we typically don't refurbish in the fall. What we do is inventory.
right, that's fine, so we'll put that in.
Would it be possible for you to be the supervisor, but the task done by the Stowe folks? Because you obviously know what's going on
I
here.
will
We
certainly
don't want to
be-
miss a beat
I will
here, but we
certainly
want to
be,
take the burden off of
I will
you.
certainly be a source of knowledge for you. I would like to not be involved in it this year. You know, you guys were appointed by Stowe, so you got to pick up that work.
Yep.
Well,
Just,
the commission owns all the work of the commission.
yes.
So it's not some work is Stowe's and some work is Hudson's, it's.
For 25
yeah.
years,
I-
only one person's done it.
I get it,
Okay.
I'm not saying that, so I'm just saying, we collectively own the work, so you're asking for someone else to do,
Just like I
that
said,
piece.
just like I said in the selectmen's meeting, you
Okay,
know, we
that's-
need help.
yeah,
Let me comment on his point. I'm an ocean sailor, or an ocean boater, and I'm a big lake boater. And on big lakes and on oceans, we have flashing buoys, and there's a reason for it. If you're at the top end of Basin 2, and you look down where the buoy that you're complaining about is, the only thing the only difference you see in the lights is one flashes. So if it's late at night and it's a starlit night, that's your guide home, if you're a boater. And if it doesn't flash, or it doesn't do something to make it unique, you can't put a color on it, colors don't work. The only thing that works is flashing, and that's what we do. I mean, that's what they do in the oceans, that's what they do in big lakes, and that's the way it's done. And I know it can be a little annoying to some people on shores, but it's kind of goes with living on a lake.
okay, so I will have some conversation with Stowe Town management about if there's a place to store, et cetera, otherwise we'll query for volunteers in that space also. So, end of season police report, that's really just something we schedule. So
I
we
don't-
probably should plan to have Mike or Lee come in either October or November to kind of provide that.
Okay, now I understand what you're asking for, because they don't normally do that.
I thought they did. I thought we've had that before.
We've asked them to come in on demand, so to speak.
Yeah.
When we thought we had an issue or we wanted to know something, but as far as I know, they don't create a separate report. They might, I've just never
Mike
seen
has
it.
done that before. Mike,
Yeah.
an end of season kind of police report from patrolling.
It's been done on an ad hoc basis on
okay.
request.
Yeah, okay. So I'm assuming we would appreciate that. Is that true?
Yeah, I've got no problem with it.
Okay.
But I like what the last thing you said, end of season request for a police report or something like that.
Okay.
Um, And I'm jumping to the end, but I believe budgets have to be done way before December. So sometime around now, October, November, the towns will issue rules for the next year's budgets, and they have to be completed and turned in. And I don't remember the dates offhand, but it's earlier than December. And for instance, in the town of Hudson, right now, if let's say that we wanted to replace a capital item, right, we've already passed the dates for next year's capital requests. So that's, capital requests have to go further up on this list somewhere for Hudson, maybe back in September. I'm sorry, I'm getting things out of order, but.
Well, we can, it's definitely good to add things, but I'm trying to get, if
Yeah.
we're past being
Yeah,
able
it's
to do
okay.
that, then so as far as budgets.
It's for next year.
Yeah, this should be just a rolling thing, we just keep adding. So budgets, can you check with what's the timing for Hudson, and I will check on Stowe?
Yeah, I've got the stuff in my.
That's okay, I don't need it right
I
now,
have
I'm
it
just
all,
saying,
yeah.
so we know who's chasing down to know the dates. I presume it will drive our need for a meeting in October, so.
Yeah.
And then the kind of the start of the drawdown, request the board removal, that sort of stuff, I think will kind of flow in under kind of you being our primary person. That doesn't mean other
Yep.
folks aren't
Yep.
involved in that.
Yep.
Okay.
And, where are we in the agenda?
So that kind of, for now, that to me covers
Thank you.
the things on the recurring responsibilities, because I really just wanted to look forward to know what we need to get done in this month, next month, start thinking November, so. So I think we have, so now we're on the new police radio for LBC boat.
Yeah, so what's happened, and I've asked for a dollar figure on that and I haven't got it yet. You both know that our boat gets used quite a bit in the summer as well as the police boat. There's a couple of reasons. Ours is more reliable. The two-stroke engine versus four-stroke engine, the two strokes don't like idling very well. So like lighting on the lake, and when Lee is out there for extended periods of time at idle, he prefers to use our boat simply because it runs better and it's got a cover on it. So we've typically always been a backup, and it's not unusual for him to go out during the day in the police boat and go out at night in our boat, because our boat's a better nighttime boat. We've got better lights on it and better blue lights on it, and just a better boat. for a
Can
lot
I
of
just
reasons.
acknowledge at this point that you're the one who really put together that boat, so you should be proud of it.
There's also another advantage to our boat, that we have a boarding ladder. We don't have one on the police boat. If you needed to do CPR, there's room on our boat to do it, and there's side lighting in our boat. So if it's at nighttime and you rescue a swimmer, there's lights inside the boat. If you could get the person in the boat, which is an if, there's room to lay them out, which we do not have in the police boat. We don't have the ability to get the person on the boat because there's no boarding ladders at all. there's really no good lighting, and there's no flat space. So,
Okay, so this topic was new police radio for the
Yeah.
LBC boat.
yes, and the reason I went off topic a little bit is because that's the reason we need a police radio in it. So what's happened in
So do we have a police radio in it now?
we have an analog radio, they've gone digital.
Okay,
So what's happened, and I'm sorry, I got off track, the town of Stowe has upgraded their police radio
Okay.
system. And can we talk to dispatch with this radio? Yes, we can. I was on one incident this summer when Mike and I were chasing jet skis, and I was able to talk to dispatch with our radio, but it's not part of the normal, it really needs to be upgraded. I'll take an action item on that one to see if I can get a dollar number on that, but I think it's like $500. Mike was supposed to give me a number on that, and I'll get back to him.
okay, so I don't think there's any decision for us on that right now, that's, you know,
More, yeah, more of an well,
Yep,
yeah, no,
that's fine.
I'd like a motion on that one. I'd like a motion to investigate getting that radio. I don't know how to
I don't
do
think we
this.
need a motion to do
No,
that.
we don't need a motion.
So,
I'm thinking of it
There's
out
no
loud.
decision here, it's collecting information,
Right,
so.
so that'll have to go on the next, that'll be forwarded to our next agenda once we get the
If we,
data.
yeah, if we need to make a decision about it, yeah.
Yeah, okay, drawdown, we've already done.
Yeah.
Um,
Lake treatment and
Lake
year-end
treatment,
reports
Andy,
from
you mind
solitude.
joining us?
What's that with us?
Yes, thank you. So, you all know Andy?
We do.
You don't know Andy?
No, not really.
Just briefly, but.
Briefly, okay.
So Andy's been managing the weed contract interaction with Solitude Management. And for how many years now?
Since, I think 2015.
So this will be 4 years.
Yeah.
So first
Two
question.
contracts.
2 contracts. Would you like to continue, or would you be willing to continue?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a routine at this point. I think, though, that, one thing that's become clear in the last, say, year or so, and, after this year's treatments, is that there's a need to be a little bit more proactive, and then instead of, sort of assuming that, Solitude's gonna do their job, and so just let them do it. I think that we need to be on top of them a little bit more, do some of our own surveys a little bit more, things like that. But it's, doesn't really change whether or not I want to do it. I'm fine doing it.
Could you say more about that, Andy? Because there was some discussion about that on the part of people here, about stuff that they were seeing that they were kind of unhappy about.
Right.
Dick,
So, yeah.
this is our meeting now.
I'm sorry, goodbye.
Yeah,
So we got a late start this year because the contracts didn't get approved soon enough.
Right.
So.
That's always a timing issue, though.
Right, so
Although I thought that the way it worked and that we had figured it out before, because of this timing issue that happens, was that there was already the money appropriated from the prior year to pay for that first treatment on the new contract this
yeah,
year.
it has to be that way.
Right.
But that's not the issue. The issue is we didn't get the contract in place with Solitude soon enough.
Right.
So what happened is the first treatments were later than they should have been
Mhm.
because we didn't have the contracts. Now that's year 1, so now we're gonna go to year 2 and 3. So,
Yep.
for
Yeah.
year 2, we have it in place, but if we're gonna have to look at this, get this lake survey done, excuse me, if we need to do a new contract, this is all on us actually, that we gotta make sure we get a contract done and signed and in place.
yeah, we know, so that's part of what we wanna calendarize and make sure we address it the right,
And I'll talk to
Time.
them in advance about concerns about Basin 1
yeah.
and specifically about seeing what might need to be done that would not be covered by the current contract. And getting that information enough in advance to be able to
Yeah,
budget for it in advance of next year and treat early enough.
right.
This-
And there's been
Yeah.
requests a couple of times in these meetings, maybe to have a Solitude person come And just, I mean, so off-season is probably a good
It's in the
time.
contract for them to attend at least one meeting a year.
Okay,
So we should set
so
that
we
up.
should probably
Yeah.
set that up for some time, early this winter, let's say, when there's nothing going on necessarily on the lake, but
There was a reason
time
I-
to think about, if there's anything else we want them to do, or, that we may need to have.
Well, set it up, or you actually have, when are you talking about them
So
actually attending?
let me stop for a
Yes.
second, because there was a reason I all of a sudden paused. And the reason I all of a sudden paused is because the clock in my head went off and said, in order, if we're gonna treat more of the lake, we not only have to change the contract, we have to change our funding. Funding is warrant articles. Warrant article funding is not effective till July 1. So because of the way the town contracts work, the money to pay for what's gonna happen this spring is from past warrant articles. So if we have to treat more of the lake, it's almost we don't have the money.
Well, I think we have to have the conversation. We have to understand if there's any value to doing that, if there's additional invasive weeds that have been identified, or those kinds of things. And then we go from there. We may or we may not be able to do something this year, but that doesn't mean we don't have the conversation and review information with them.
They don't charge for
No,
giving us the answer.
we'll get the proposal from
Yeah.
them and figure out what needs to be done.
Yeah.
I just don't want to set the expectation.
Well, I
that-
don't think,
Okay.
I don't have an expectation. I just think we need to start chasing it down, and that's, we've had the group, our
With some-
community has asked to have Solitude present also, so that they could ask some of these questions that, some of us aren't as
With
adept at answering.
With some urgency, I think.
Yeah,
Right, so when are you talking about?
so,
having
so
them?
I would say, maybe we could plan to schedule something for even, like, I don't know, November, December.
I think it's too late.
That's too late for what part?
If let's make an assumption that we're going to treat Basin 1.
Mhm.
It's just an assumption, right? Let's assume that Solitude goes in and they looks at Lake Basin 1, they come back and say, yes, it needs to be treated.
Mhm.
Okay, well, the time to treat that is next May, March, April, May, depending on the
Yeah.
weather.
Yep.
If we're gonna have that in place, it means we have to get a contract in place immediately, and we have to find funding for it if it's gonna happen then. If we can't find funding, for it, I believe, we could get on the fall town meetings in both towns, warrant articles?
We don't have one,
You
we're
don't
not
have
having a
one?
fall one.
You don't have a fall one? Okay. We are.
Oh, we get the money from Hudson.
Yeah. So.
But it sounds like, go to Solitude right now.
Go to
and
Solitude
say-
right now.
And say we want to have.
Survey right now.
And, take a look at
Proposal
this
right
and what-
now.
yeah.
And then as soon as they give that to us, having a meeting as soon as we can, as a commission, to figure out what to do about it.
Yep.
When we got some hard numbers in front
Once
of
we
us.
get it, right.
Yeah.
And if there's
Okay.
something to talk about, then we can have them come for a meeting.
So there's a whole bunch of issues there, but the biggest one is invasive versus non-invasive. If they come to us and say, yes, you have a lot of weeds that are not invasive, and we say to them, can we still treat those? And they say, yes. Now we've got an orders of conditions problem. Now we gotta go to the Concoms.
Yeah, right, and that can happen.
Right.
They can sometimes treat for invasive things that are,
Right.
like one in particular, because I was just going through my emails, in particular, there was some emails in 2017 about eelgrass.
Mm-hmm.
And, the answer from them was, well, there are some other places, there are some other water bodies where we treat it.
Yeah.
And it's, something that you may be able to have done.
Yep.
Nothing came from it.
If you very quickly plant an invasive with the eelgrass, then we can treat the invasive.
Okay, so Andy, you'll take an action to engage them to see when they could come out and do the survey and give.
Let's get some.
And is that like just timing wise, do you think that's,
Yeah.
they would come out like in the next few weeks, or
They
what's
were out
generally
last
your
week.
experience?
They were here,
They were here.
yeah.
checking for, looking at the results of the last treatment, most likely.
They did the
Booster.
August booster treatment was the last time they were here.
So, okay.
Um,
I'll see how quickly they can go.
Okay,
Yeah,
All right.
okay, thank you.
and that requires, there's so much work that might have to be done there, that the sooner they can get back to us, the better off we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And the better off they'll be too.
Anything
Excellent.
else for weed treatment?
No,
I
that's a
don't-
lot.
You have anything?
Nope,
Do you have anything else?
No.
only
But thank you.
appreciation.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
for what you're doing.
I think it's
And I think
impressive.
I was getting a nonverbal that maybe Stowe does have a fall town meeting. I had asked like a month or two ago, and they said
They
no.
are not regularly scheduled. If there is business the town needs to conduct, they call special town meetings.
Yes, but,
It's not uncommon.
yes, but last I had heard, there is no plan.
I don't believe, I have not heard of
Yeah.
one being discussed yet.
Okay,
There is another way to get money besides a town meeting. That's, you can go, there's a whole process. If, I can't remember the
that's
name of
okay.
it,
Well,
but there is a way.
all right, so that's that agenda.
New business, do we have any new business we want to talk about?
Well, do we want to go back to our?
Yes, we will. Last thing.
Okay.
Any new business?
I think we have a number of carryover things from previous minutes, so I think that kind of offline, we review what we have from previous meetings, requests and those kinds of things, and just put that out to ourselves to determine if any of those should show up on the next agenda.
Okay.
Some might not make sense because they may be,
Yeah, there was one in the,
whether we're putting new buoy
right.
in the fourth space or whatever, maybe it's not it's not urgent to do that right now, but.
Yeah, the new business for next meeting on the minutes were on the fourth base and no wake buoy, RC objects on the lake,
Yep.
and then elections. Okay. So
So,
that
nothing
same new business
Yep.
from carryover
Yep.
from the last
Yep.
set of minutes, okay. Next meeting, I'm saving you for last. So the next meeting, when's it, is really dependent, the next order of business that will be, that has to really, this whole weed thing.
Yeah, the drawdown
As soon as
stuff.
Solitude comes to us,
Yep.
then we need to pull a meeting together as soon as we can after that. That's
Mhm.
my take on it.
Mhm.
How about you two?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
So-
and depending on when that is, we might need to even have something before that, because we've got to make sure we're doing the drawdown stuff. So, if we have anything that we need to discuss about that, we may have to call it.
So go back to drawdown for a second, then, based on what you just said, we're not in, if he's reading the OOCs and he has a question on them and he
Yeah,
calls me to ask the
agreed.
question, that is legitimate.
Yep,
Because we've already, we're
Yep.
doing, we're not making any decisions.
right,
We're not changing anything.
agreed,
So operationally, what was the term that,
deliberations.
that's right, but administrative issues
Mhm.
are not deliberations. So we can do administrative issues together or separately, not in a meeting, because all we're doing is administrating what we've already agreed to do. So that's what drawdown is
Yeah.
at this
Yeah.
point, it's an
Yeah.
administrative issue.
Yep.
Because we're not gonna change anything, Whereas in the weed stuff, if it turns out we gotta treat basin one, we gotta talk about that one in a public forum.
Yep.
Okay?
So date of next meeting is going to be sometime in October, when we feel like we've got what we need from
I am
Solitude.
gone October 5 through 13, otherwise I'm available.
Okay,
Let's figure those dates right.
And I'm gone October 14 through 18.
okay. Gosh, am I gone? Damn it, I don't have it. I gotta go somewhere.
So that says,
The 21st,
That says, yeah, the week of the 21st
Yep.
is the first really available week.
Yep,
Um,
so we'll tentatively.
If you want to pencil in that Wednesday, or that, Wednesdays tend to be a good day.
23rd,
Yeah.
That works for me.
yeah. Okay,
So the other comment on that one is, historically, we rarely have a meeting without three people unless it's something that's critical, like a bill to be paid, or not really a deliberative meeting. It's just a meeting that we need to do something, we know we needed to do it. Two of us are available, the third one's not available. We had one very short meeting just to pay a bill. So that's been the history. Anything that requires really deliberate, I can't say it.
Deliberation.
Thank you. We've always tried to have all three of us here, whoever the three were. Because you had talked about having a meeting earlier with just two people, and that's, although we can do it, we try not, historically, we've tried not to do it. Okay, are we done with the standard agenda?
well,
I know,
we're back
I know. We're back to
still on
that.
the agenda, but, yep,
Yes, I'm, everything but that, that's what I'm trying to say.
yep.
Okay, I'll go back to that, I feel better now. I'm sorry, I don't like surprises. It takes a minute for my little brain to get around surprises. So, so what I'm hearing is that you would like to be chairman and you would like to be clerk.
Sure.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Mhm.
And we've also talked about this in the past, that maybe we should revisit that like once a year.
Yeah, that's kind of our standard.
Yeah, so you're good with that too?
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that you become chairman, that you become clerk, I'm sorry, I should say this correctly, that Chris becomes chairman, that Dan becomes clerk, I take a sabbatical, I'll see you in 6 years now. And that we revisit this once a year, and let's try to do it the September meeting each year. Right.
I second it.
Discussion?
I just want to add, Conroy, that I'd be perfectly happy if you were chair or she were chair, because I think we have common views on the topics. And I think that, now that you've had time to process this, I'm hoping you're seeing this as a relief of pressure that she's able to, you're eager, bring in enthusiasm to, take charge of things that we know have slipped. You don't have to worry about that. We just make sure we get things done, and that we, appreciate your willingness to do that. If she weren't willing, I'd be perfectly happy if you were chair, but I think we'll just, you're rising to the occasion, so let's go for it.
So to comment on that, having served as chair for at least 20 years, the way I usually try to run the commission was to collect other people and herd the cats, right? And what I love about Chris is like, oh, I got someone that's doing good stuff, and she's really good at it. And she's organizing all this stuff, and I hate to lose that. That was my first thing. It's like, wait a minute, I got someone that's finally doing all this stuff, and doing it right, and et cetera. And you're right, you won't lose my knowledge. My knowledge is still here.
So I second that motion.
Discussion?
Mhm.
Discussion?
Nope.
All in favor? I'll even
Aye.
vote for it. I should
Okay.
abstain, but I'll vote for it. Good, you get to
And
join
I
the meeting now.
assume, Chris, that my responsibilities for clerk start at the next meeting.
Yes, I'll take
And-
care of
and
minutes.
You'll instruct me on things I need to do as
Yes,
I do that.
we'll kind of buddy it up for a little while, because
Yeah.
I didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
So,
All right?
yes. So, motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
We are-
Just for education says, when she makes a motion to adjourn, it's not debatable. It just has to be seconded, that's it.
Yep.
And so, any one of us seconds it, it's done.
We are adjourned, 9:03.
Motion.
All
We
right.
are adjourned. All right.
Technically not correct. It's non-debatable.
It's not debatable, that's right. I got,
It's non,
thank you. I'm sitting here saying, I didn't say that quite right. What was wrong? Yeah, it's not debatable.
Congratulations.
thank you.
Commiserations.